The Hound of the Baskervilles, 1902. Episode 8. The Final Confrontation with the Beast. Welcome back, fellow detectives. We've learned Stapleton's true identity and understood his elaborate plan, but now we must return to that terrifying night when legend became reality and the Hound was unleashed for its final hunt. The confrontation between rational deduction and primal terror, between Holmes's scientific mind and a creature bred for murder. This is the moment when everything we've learned comes together in a desperate race to save Sir Henry's life. Have you ever prepared for a danger you understood intellectually but still feared viscerally? What happens when knowledge isn't enough to overcome terror? Prepare yourself for the night the Hound of the Baskervilles was finally brought to bay. Picture yourself on that fateful evening, watching Holmes make his final preparations. The fog that had been threatening all day is rolling in across the moor, thick and treacherous. Holmes stands at the window of Baskerville Hall, his face tense with concern as he watches the white wall of mist advancing. The fog is both danger and opportunity, Holmes says to Watson and Lestrade. It will make Stapleton bold. He'll believe the conditions are perfect for his hound to strike. But it also reduces visibility, making our task more difficult. We must position ourselves perfectly, or Sir Henry will die before we can intervene. Watson checks his revolver for the third time. Holmes, are you certain we can stop this creature in time? You've described it as enormous, trained to kill. What if our bullets aren't enough? Holmes's response is characteristically confident, but Watson notices the slight tension in his voice. We'll be using my heaviest caliber rounds, and we'll all fire simultaneously. 3 revolvers at close range will stop any animal that walks on 4 legs. But there's something Holmes isn't saying, something Watson can see in his eyes. Doubt. Not about the plan itself, but about whether even Holmes's legendary deductive powers can overcome the chaos of reality. They're about to face something that exists in the space between the rational and the supernatural, a creature that shouldn't exist but does, bred by human malice to become a living nightmare. Think about this moment, detective. Holmes has built his entire career on the principle that every mystery has a rational explanation. But now he must confront something that, while technically natural, has been shaped into something so monstrous that it might as well be supernatural. Can reason triumph over terror when the terror has teeth and glowing eyes? Sir Henry joins them, dressed for dinner as planned. He's trying to appear calm, but his hands shake slightly as he buttons his coat. I won't lie to you, gentlemen. I'm terrified. But I'm also angry. Stapleton murdered my uncle and planned to murder me. If playing bait catches him, then I'll do it gladly. Holmes briefs him one final time. Walk at a natural pace toward Mire House. Don't rush, don't look around nervously. Stapleton will be watching to ensure you're alone and unsuspecting. We'll follow about 100 yards behind, using the fog for cover. When the hound attacks, throw yourself flat on the ground immediately. That will give us a clear field of fire. What if I freeze? Sir Henry asks honestly. What if I see that creature and simply cannot move? Holmes places a hand on his shoulder. Then Watson and I will die trying to reach you. But I don't believe you'll freeze. You're a Baskerville. You have centuries of stubborn courage in your blood. When the moment comes, you'll act. As darkness falls and the fog thickens, they take their positions. Sir Henry sets out alone, walking the path toward Mire House with admirable steadiness despite his fear. Holmes, Watson, and Lestrade follow at a distance, moving quietly through the fog, their revolvers drawn and ready. I can barely see 20 feet ahead, Lestrade whispers. How will we know when to shoot? Holmes responds quietly. You'll know. Believe me, Inspector, when that creature appears, there will be no doubt whatsoever. Watson notices that Holmes has positioned himself slightly ahead of them. If the hound breaks through, Holmes will take the first impact. They move through the fog like ghosts, following the sound of Sir Henry's footsteps ahead. The moor is eerily silent except for the distant drip of water and the occasional call of a nightbird. Then, cutting through the silence, comes a sound that makes Watson's blood freeze, the howling. But this isn't the distant, mournful howling they've heard on previous nights. This is close, immediate, and rising in pitch and volume like a hunting horn announcing the chase. The howling becomes a roar, becomes a sound of pure predatory hunger that seems to come from every direction at once. "It's been released," Holmes hisses. "Stapleton has given it Sir Henry's scent from the boot. The hound is hunting now. Be ready." They can hear the creature running through the fog, heavy footfalls, the snap of vegetation being crushed under enormous weight. Something massive is charging toward Sir Henry at terrifying speed. Then they see it. Emerging from the fog like a demon from hell itself, the hound appears. Even Holmes, who knew intellectually what to expect, seems momentarily paralyzed by the reality of the beast. It's far larger than any dog Watson has ever seen, a nightmare fusion of bloodhound and mastiff, bred for size and power over generations. Can you imagine confronting such a creature, detective? The hound's eyes and muzzle glow with that terrible phosphorescent paint, giving it the appearance of something supernatural. Its jaws hang open, showing teeth designed to crush and tear. The sound it makes is neither bark nor howl but something primeval, a sound that triggers instincts older than civilization. Sir Henry sees the creature and does exactly what Holmes feared. He freezes. For a crucial second, he simply stands there, paralyzed by the same terror that killed his uncle. The hound is closing the distance with terrifying speed. 50 yards, 40, 30. It will reach Sir Henry in seconds, and when it does, those jaws will close around his throat. "Fire!" Holmes shouts, breaking his own paralysis. All three men shoot simultaneously, but the fog has made accurate aiming nearly impossible. Watson sees his shot strike the creature's shoulder. It staggers but doesn't stop. Lestrade's bullet seems to miss entirely. Only Holmes's shot finds a vital area, striking the hound's chest. But the creature's momentum carries it forward. It leaps toward Sir Henry, who has finally broken his paralysis and throws himself sideways. The hound's jaws snap shut inches from his throat, and the massive beast crashes past him, stumbling as Holmes's bullet takes effect. Watson runs forward, reloading as he moves. The hound has recovered its footing and is turning back toward Sir Henry, who's scrambling backward across the ground. Watson fires again, this time at point-blank range, and the bullet strikes the creature's skull. It collapses, twitching, and then lies still. The three men converge on the fallen beast, revolvers still aimed at it, but there's no need. The hound is dead, its terrible eyes now dark and lifeless. Up close, with the fog swirling around them, they can examine what Stapleton created. "Good God," Lestrade breathes. "I've never seen a dog so large. It must weigh 15 stone at least." Holmes kneels beside the creature, studying it with professional detachment now that the danger has passed. A bloodhound mastiff cross, bred specifically for size and trained for tracking and killing. Notice the muscle development in the shoulders and jaws. This animal could have crushed a man's skull with a single bite. Watson examines the phosphorescent paint that gave the creature its hellish appearance. This is brilliant in a horrible way. In darkness, the hound would appear to glow with its own infernal light. Anyone seeing it would instantly think of the legend of demonic curses and supernatural vengeance. Think about Stapleton's psychology here, detective. It wasn't enough for him to simply kill his victims. He needed them to die in terror, believing they were seeing the family curse manifest. The paint, the breeding, the training, all of it was designed to create maximum psychological impact before the kill. Sir Henry has recovered enough to stand, though he's still shaking. "That thing would have torn my throat out, if you'd been even a second slower." Holmes helps him to his feet, but we weren't slower. "The plan worked, Sir Henry. You played your role perfectly, and the hound is dead." "Now we must find Stapleton," Holmes says urgently. "He'll have heard the shots. He knows his plot has failed." They look toward Mire House, where lights are blazing in several windows. A figure appears briefly at a window, then disappears. Stapleton, realizing his carefully constructed plan has collapsed. They begin moving toward the house, but Holmes stops suddenly. "Listen!" In the distance they hear running footsteps, someone fleeing across the moor. "He's making for the mire," Holmes realizes. He thinks he can escape using his secret paths. We must follow. The chase across the fog-shrouded moor becomes a nightmare pursuit. They can hear Stapleton ahead of them, running desperately, but the fog makes it impossible to see more than a few yards. Holmes tries to follow, but even he, with all his skills, cannot safely navigate the treacherous ground in these conditions. "Mr. Holmes," a woman's voice calls through the fog. It's Beryl Stapleton, running from the house. "Don't follow him into the mire. He'll lead you to your deaths. He knows every path, and you don't." But Holmes is already committed, following the sound of Stapleton's flight into the most dangerous part of the moor. They find Stapleton's marker posts, the sticks he'd carefully placed to mark the safe paths through Grimpen Mire. Holmes follows them cautiously, but in the darkness and fog, it's almost impossible to see the next marker. At one crucial junction, they find a post has fallen, knocked over by Stapleton in his panic. "Which way did he go?" Watson asks desperately. They can hear Stapleton ahead of them, but the sounds are becoming confused, echoing strangely in the fog. Then they hear something that makes their blood run cold. A scream, sudden and sharp, followed by the horrible sucking sound of the bog claiming its victim. Holmes marks their current position carefully. "We cannot go further tonight. To attempt it would mean our own deaths. At first light, we'll search for his body." They stand in the fog, listening, but there are no more sounds from ahead. Stapleton has made his final mistake. In panic and darkness, he missed one of his own carefully marked paths and stepped into the mire he knew so well. The next morning, with the fog cleared and proper equipment, they search the area where Stapleton disappeared. Holmes finds the spot, a section of the mire where the mud has been disturbed recently. Using long poles, they probe the area and find Stapleton's body about 6 feet down, held fast by the bog. "He almost made it across," Holmes observes quietly. "Another 10 feet and he would have reached solid ground. But in the darkness, disoriented by panic, he took one wrong step. The mire took him the way he'd planned for it to take Sir Henry." They recover Stapleton's body with difficulty. His face is frozen in an expression of horror and realization. The moment when he understood that the trap he'd so carefully prepared for others had claimed him instead. There's a grim justice in it, Watson thinks, though he takes no pleasure in the sight. "Can you see the symmetry here, Detective? Stapleton used the moor's dangers as a weapon, turned Grimpen Mire into an instrument of murder. In the end, that same weapon turned on its master. The land itself became executioner and judge." Back at Mire House, they find Stapleton's journals and records, everything Holmes suspected and more. The journals detail 5 years of planning, breeding programs for the hound, experiments with the phosphorescent paint, surveillance logs tracking Sir Charles's movements. It's all there, a complete confession written by a man who couldn't resist documenting his own criminal genius. They also find the hound's lair in the old mining building in the center of the mire. Following Stapleton's marked paths in daylight, Holmes and Watson reach the structure and find where the creature lived. The place is a nightmare. Bones of animals the hound has eaten, chains and training equipment, containers of the phosphorescent paint. "This is where he kept it between hunts," Holmes says, examining the space. "The hound was trained to return here after being released, to hide until Stapleton came to retrieve it. If the creature had successfully killed Sir Henry, Stapleton would have come here, cleaned the hound, removed the phosphorus paint, and returned it to its hiding place. No one would ever have known a dog was involved." Watson finds the breeding records. He started with 2 bloodhounds and a mastiff 6 years ago. He bred them selectively, always choosing the largest offspring, creating something that barely resembles a normal dog anymore. This is monstrous, turning breeding science into murder weapon. The final piece of evidence is found in Stapleton's safe, his true identity papers proving he was Roger Baskerville. There are also letters from family members who'd secretly supported him over the years, not knowing his murderous intentions. The complete picture of the conspiracy is now clear. Sir Henry looks at the dead hound's body, which has been transported to the hall for the coroner's inspection. "I still can't quite believe it. All this effort, all this planning, just for money and property. He could have made his own fortune with such intelligence and patience." Holmes responds thoughtfully. "But that would have required honest work, Sir Henry. Some men can only create through destruction. Stapleton could have been a brilliant naturalist, a respected scientist. Instead, he chose to be a murderer. And like most murderers, he ultimately destroyed himself." So tell me, detective, when you witnessed the hound emerging from that fog, glowing with phosphorescent fire, could you have maintained your rational understanding of what it truly was? Or would terror have overwhelmed reason, just as Stapleton planned? And what does this final confrontation teach us about the relationship between fear and reality? The battle with the hound was more than just Holmes versus an animal. It was reason confronting manufactured terror, science facing weaponized superstition. That Holmes won doesn't diminish the genuine horror of what Stapleton created. Sometimes the rational explanation is just as frightening as any supernatural curse. Join me next time for our final episode as we explore the aftermath of the case, examine what becomes of the Baskerville estate, and hear Holmes's philosophical reflections on the nature of evil and the power of ancient legends. Until then, remember, the most terrifying monsters are not the ones that exist in legends, but the ones that human beings create in reality.